Hello and welcome to Power Wheel, TCN's weekly public enlightenment program focusing on Nigeria's electricity supply sector and efforts of operators and stakeholders to improve power supply. I'm Sheung Olagunju. You're welcome. The Nigerian power sector has initiated a power sector recovery program, PSRP, which involves a series of policies and programs aimed at addressing shortcomings in the privatization process, which would support the process of transition and ultimately deliver a stable, competitive and efficient power sector. Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, disclosed this at the 18th Monthly Power Sector Stakeholders Meeting held in Kano. The minister outlined some of the policies, programs and actions taken under the program to include expansion of the nation's transmission capacity, the release of 39 billion naira to distribution companies towards the supply of meters, among others.
The Power Sector Recovery Program is a series of policies and programs that are aimed at re-engineering the shortcomings of the privatization process, and also enunciated to support the process through this transition and learning period, and ultimately to deliver a stable and competitive and efficient power sector. Some of the policies, programs and actions which have started taking effect include the payment assurance guarantee for 701 billion naira, the constitution of some boards like NERC and REA, and we have seen the impact of the constitution of NERC with the first major regulations that helps us now provide a compass for how mini grids will operate and how permits will be issued to them, and there will be more coming. The third policy is the verification of MDA debts, which have now been completed, and with plans now to get approvals on how to pay.
The minister also disclosed that generation capability had risen to 6,000 megawatts, while transmission capability is now 6,700 megawatts, but that distribution is unable to pick the load, thereby denying the sector the opportunity of recording significant improvement.
As of August 10, 2017, our peak availability of power, which can be put on the grid, was 6,863 megawatts, while the transmission capacity has risen in simulation to 6,700 megawatts. Unfortunately, we can't put all of that power on the grid because the discos cannot take the power, and this is what has been called load rejection, which I will address. Now, this progress is consistent with our roadmap of getting incremental power, and it shows that from a generation of about 2,690 megawatts in May 2015, we have grown to 6,863 in generation, and transmission has increased from 5,000 to 6,700.
He said the introduction of mini-grids is consistent with the provision of ESPRA and the policy of incremental power, which would provide access to power for communities that have not been served or are underserved. The meeting ended as usual with the presentation of the communique to the media.
The Honorable Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, chaired the 18th meeting of the operators in of the electricity industry. The Honorable Minister of State, Power, Works and Housing, the Honorable Mustafa Baba Shahuri, was also in attendance. The meeting was hosted by Kano Electricity Distribution Company, KEDCO. However, it was hosted at the Kumbozo Transmission Station here in Kano. This was done after the minister commissioned our customer care center at our headquarters, and also commissioned a 15 MVA injection substation at the Jakarta Small Scale Industries. And also, the minister launched the mini grid regulation developed by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission.
Today, on the interview segment, Power Wheel Crew spoke with the Interim Managing Director, CEO of TCN, Mr. Usman Gur Mohammed, on his achievements so far, plans and visions for the company.
When we came in February, I came in from African Development Bank. We look at the grid and the capacity of TCN. And clearly TCN is well ahead of the distribution companies. But definitely, if you look at the grid, you will discover that there are certain areas where certainly we have low capacity. I mean, there are issues. And those areas, we need to build some lines, and we also need to upgrade the capacity of transformers and build new substations. But also, we discovered that we need to provide the necessary flexibility that is needed in running a transmission company worldwide. And that is, the minimum standard is what they call N-1, where for everywhere you have a capacity, you have to put it times 2. So that what happened in Apo when I came newly, when a transformer fell and the whole of Maitama and part of Abuja was in darkness, should not happen. So we look at the existing structure and we look at the revenue profile of TCN, and we discover that the easiest way we can raise money to build a capacity, because what we are getting from revenue is about less than 40%. And that is not enough for us to use either contractor financing or any form of PPP. So the easiest way we can raise money is through going to the multilateral donors. So we had to go and approach Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Power, and both of them supported us to raise money from the multilateral donors. Our capacity to implement projects. And in looking at that, our capacity, we discovered that 3 things are issues that has militated TCN from effectively implementing projects. One of the issues is the issue of oversight. TCN management have not been providing oversight over multilateral donor-funded projects. And that is why right now we are providing those oversight. Then the next problem is the issue of procurement. Procurement has made it possible for people who have not performed in the past to also continue to get contracts. And that's why we changed the selection criteria and the qualification criteria in such a way that people who have not performed in the past cannot get job. So we also look at the issue of TCN, the way TCN is implementing projects, and the kind of people who are implementing projects. TCN has not been in the past putting their best to implement projects, and that's why we come up with a merit-based selection method where we advertise internally for people who have the capacity to implement or think they have the capacity to implement project, and they apply, and we interview them, we conducted tests for them, and we have selected those we think they are the best to implement project. With that, we are able to convince the multilateral donors, and as we speak now, we have raised about $1.55 billion to expand the grid. And what we are looking at is that in the next 3 years, we want the grid to be expanded to about 20,000 megawatt from about 7,000 megawatt that we have now. And we have also looked at the existing energy project that is being implemented, and it has been implemented for almost 8 years now. Such project is supposed to be implemented in 3 to 4 years, but it has spent 8 years. We have gone ahead to resolve all the issues that has made that project not to be implemented properly. And that's why we instituted a scheme where every month we meet the contractors to find out what are the issues that they have. Now, that project will be completed by the end of this year, and that is the understanding we get from the contract. So this is our strategy. Our strategy is to expand the grid, provide the necessary flexibility, remove the bottlenecks in areas that need to be removed, and make transmission company a company that can meet its obligation of wheeling power under the power sector of Nigeria. As the chairman of the WAP Executive Board, I can tell you that the issue of right of way is a big problem for Nigeria, because WAP is building a transmission line from Nigeria, that is from Birnin Kebbi to the border, and from the border to Yamai, the capital of Niger, and from the capital of Niger to Burkina Faso. This is what we call the North Core of the West African power pool backbone. Now that line, we have done a study on that line, and what the study shows is that from the Nigerian border to Birnin Kebbi is about 61 kilometers, and from the border of Nigeria to Yamai, which is the capital of Niger, the distance is over 300 kilometers. But the compensation for right of way for the 61 kilometers on the side of Nigeria is even more expensive than the over 300 kilometers in the side of Niger. That is to tell you that right of way is a big issue in TCN, and it's a big issue in Nigeria. And I can also tell you that if you look at the cases that we have in court, as TCN, in TCN, over 80% of them have something to do with right of way. So right of way is a big problem. So when we came in, for us to be able to implement project, we also have to look at how are we going to tackle the issue of right of way, because we are building some big transmission lines which will require us to have good right of way. So that's why we come up with the issue with collaboration with the governors. And this seems to be working. In fact, some of the governors are doing what we didn't expect them they would do. For example, we are building a transmission line, 330, we are constructing the line from Shiroro to Kaduna. Currently, the line are two. Each of them is carrying about 300 megawatt capacity. We are reconstructing one of the line to Cord line. And the Cord line, for information, is a line that we have never built in Nigeria before. What we have is a double circuit, what we call double circuit lines, which is DC. What we are doing now is a cord that will carry four conductors per each ton. And that will enable us to wheel 2,400 megawatt from Shiroro to Kaduna. And then we are doing the same thing from Kaduna to Kano also. Also the same thing from Alauji to Onitsha, and from Delta to Benin. Now, for us to do this project, we have to collaborate with the governors, and we have approached the governor of Kaduna, and he has been helping us very well. In fact, he has even paid some compensation on the right of way of those places, and he's deployed the state machinery, the state GIS to do the survey for us. So we are not even the one doing the survey. So, and this same collaboration that we're getting from Kaduna, we're also getting from the governor of Kano. And the same thing, governor of Abia, we are also getting the same collaboration with the governor of Edo State. We are also working with the governor of Ogun State and Lagos State on the JICA project between Lagos and Ogun State. We have met with the governor of Ogun State, and that's why he's supporting us. Right now, the study is almost completed, Very soon we'll start the procurement process of that project. We are also looking at collaborating with the states to see if we can institute some laws that will prohibit people from building under the right of way. Because the right of way is not just to acquire the right of way, but to prevent people from also building under the right of way. Because every transmission line that we build, sometimes we have to go back to reconduct those transmission lines to give us higher capacity. And when you go to the conductor and people have already built under those right of way, it becomes a problem. That is one. Two, it's also very dangerous for people to live under the right of way because anything can happen. A lifeline can fall on the ground and kill people. Like what happened recently by a distribution company, Takwa distribution company around, I think, Akwa Ibom. It kills a lot of people. Transmission line will be more dangerous than the distribution line because the voltage that our line carries is more than the one of the distribution. This is actually a big problem for TCN because, you know, transmission company, we are not only transmitting light, but we are also the one enforcing the grid code. So we are the one balancing the connected load and the generated load. So you see, in this case now, the problem we have now is that the generators can generate high, maybe over 6,500 megawatt of generation, especially now that we have stability in gas supply. And transmission can transmit those power generated. But distribution capacity, if you look at in the recent time, is not more than 4,500 that they can distribute. So no matter what the capacity of the generation and transmission, the connected load and the generated load have to balance. And it is TCN duty under the independent system operator to balance those two. So the problem we have now is that the generation companies are seeing us as the one preventing them from using their capacity fullest. So it's a big problem for us. And that is why Transmission Company of Nigeria is aligning with all the policies that the government is doing to ensure that we expand the load. This issue of declaration of eligible customer, which the minister has declared, we are fully behind him, and that's why we have undertaken to provide the balancing mechanism for the implementation of the eligible customer as declared by the minister. We are also working with anybody who is going to help us to take more load. Even the distribution companies, we are working with some of them, especially some of the state street lights that is not on the public grid, it's not on the grid. We are working with some of the distribution companies to ensure that we get those states to allow them to pick the load, especially now that we have some stability in our frequency. As we came in, we have reviewed the way we have been doing before, and that is why recently we have appointed a focal person for each of the discos and also for each of the generators to ensure that all the relationship that we have with them are tackled by this focal person so that we don't have big issues with them. This focal person's duty actually is to ensure that we pick more load. So if there is need for us to reset a relay, it is the focal person's duty to set the relay. And if there's issues that will require TCN's attention, that focal person will have to first relate with the regional general manager. And if the regional general manager cannot solve that problem, the focal person will come to us at the headquarters. But we have not also stopped at that. When we are putting this our investment, the transmission expansion, rehabilitation and expansion program, we call each and every of the discos in Nigeria and told them we want them to tell us where they need capacity. So in establishing, in planning that project, we carry along each and every of the distribution companies. We carry them. And not only that, we have simulated the grid up to 33 kV.
Thanks for staying with us, and if you just joined us, this is Power Wheel, an initiative of the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, focusing weekly on the power sector. You can watch this episode and other past ones on our YouTube channel, TCN Power Wheel, and also subscribe to get updates. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also visit our website, www.tcn.org.ng. The management of TCN recently held a consultation workshop with the managing directors, chief executive officers of GenCos, DISCOs, and other agencies on balancing mechanism developed by TCN's market operations aimed at facilitating the implementation of the eligible customer declared by the Minister of Power, Works and Housing. TCN's MD, Mr. Usman Gul Mohammed, said that the Nigerian electricity market will grow if there were willing buyers and willing sellers. Collected load and generated load, he noted, must however balance, and this is achieved through TCN's System Operations Unit.
Right now, we are not considering customers that are already contracted. But I want to tell you that customers that are not contracted are so many, so big. They are big customers and are many. They are not contracted to anybody. They are not supplying through the grid. If you look at Abuja here now, we have so many of them that are not contracted. NNPC is not contracted. CBN is not contracted. There are so many. They are not contracted. They are taking their supply. They don't care about the grid. And right now, they are paying interest in the grid because they have found some level of stability. So they are looking at it. And we are also working very hard, sir, to ensure that we don't also sustain this stability, but we also improve.
According to him, operational guidelines for eligible customers are subject to NERC approval. Bilateral trade, however, has to grow if the market must grow.
We found out that there is need for some amendment to the market rule. We wrote the intention is to encourage direct bilateral trade. And if those customers are not connected to the grid, the intention of the declaration of eligible customer, subject to the operational guideline that NAC is going to issue, is that if there is an eligible customer here in Abuja and is not connected to the grid, the generator can build the line, you understand, to transmission, and charge what they are charging for the line, included in the charge of the electricity, so that they can charge higher and collect their money and pay TCN transmission user system, and then they win their supply.
Presenting a technical and practical example of application of the balancing mechanism, Engineer Ahmed Ibrahim Ketafi said that for effective implementation of the policy on eligible customer, the market rules require that the market operator and participants should develop the balancing mechanism that would deal with energy differences that could result from bilateral contracts as a result of implementation of eligible customers.
The market rules has specified that MO and the participants should come up with this balancing mechanism, and that's what we invited you to go through it so that you come out of it. And market rules section 29.31 and 29.3.2 shows how this balancing mechanism is going to be applied. How MO is going to apply this balancing mechanism by the time bilateral contract is up. So we are taking one out of the 5 scenarios that were shown, so that we take practical example on how this can be applied. We are assuming that the parties are going to have yearly reconciliation. Reconciliation can be done in a month, can be done in 2 months, 3 months, depending on the agreement they have. But the assumption we are making here is going to be yearly reconciliation between these two parties, the eligible customer and the director customer. So at the end of the year, we are expecting the director to support the customer 140 million kilowatt hour.
The workshop was aimed at availing stakeholders the opportunity to critique and contribute to the document. The final outcome would be sent to NERC for approval. That's it on Power Wheel for now. Please join us next time. I am Sheung Olagunju. We thank you for watching.